Hello. Hi. Hi. Hello there. Well, hi there. Well, hello there, and welcome to Midway Bible Camp's online chapel. Today's video is going to be about the consequences of sin. In the last video, we talked about this problem that we as humans have, this problem of sin, the problem of evil in our world. And today we're going to be talking about what happens because we sin. And so before we start talking about the consequences of sin, we got to talk about what a consequence is. I'll demonstrate with this. So I have here a cup of hot tea. Now, what happens to me if I decide to stick my finger into this hot cup? Ow! It's gonna burn. It's gonna burn my hand. If I decide to stick my hand into this cup, I'm going to get burned. And so the consequence for me sticking my finger into that cup is that I get burned. Now, a consequence can also be a punishment. Let's say you have a rule at your house that you gotta be home by a certain time. What if you decide you wanted to disobey and stay out later? Maybe you'd get grounded, right? And so the consequence or punishment for disobeying the rules that you have at your house is that you get grounded. Now, sin also has a consequence. In the garden, God told Adam and Eve, He told them that they could eat from any tree in the garden except for one, right? He said, if you eat from it, you will certainly die. So the consequence for eating from that tree was death. Okay, hold on. Why was the punishment for eating from this tree so harsh? Why would God allow Adam and Eve to die if He really loved them? Well, here's the thing. God didn't want Adam and Eve to die. In fact, He wanted them to live with Him forever. That's what God created them for. He created Adam and Eve to live with Him forever. And when Adam and Eve lived with God, they were happy and completely satisfied. God is the creator of life. Everything that has life, He gave that life to those things. And so God gave humans their life. And He meant for humans to be with Him, because only then do they really experience living. Now, when Adam and Eve ate from the fruit, basically what they were doing was in their hearts, they were saying, we don't care about living with God. We want to do what we want. God says don't eat from the tree, but we don't care. We want to eat from the tree. So basically they're saying, God, you're not the boss of us. Leave us alone. And when they turned away from God like that, they walked away from the source of life. They walked away from the one who gives them life. And what happens when you walk away from life? You get death. So the consequence for disobeying God, for turning away from Him and saying, I want to do what I want, leave me alone, is that we have to die. Because only with God can we live. In the Bible, there's this verse in Romans chapter 3, verse 23. And it says, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. This verse is basically saying that every single person has sinned. Every single person has done something that separates them from God. And the consequence for separating ourselves from God is that we are going to die. And there's nothing that we can do about that. And when we die, we are going to be separated from God for all eternity. Now, at one point, I was separated from God because I am a human. I have sinned, and sometimes I still continue to make wrong choices. But I am not separated from God anymore. And there's one reason why I'm not separated from God anymore, and that's because of Jesus. We're going to be diving into that a little bit more in the following days. But let's look at our theme verse again. Romans 5:17. For the sin of this one man, Adam, caused death to rule over many. But even greater is God's wonderful grace and his gift of righteousness, for all who receive it will live in triumph over sin and death through this one man, Jesus Christ. So we can see from this first part of the verse that the consequence of Adam's sin was that sin and death affected all people. The consequence for us sinning is that we deserve to die. But there's good news. Remember, I said that I'm not separated from God anymore. And so the good news is that God is good. He loves us. And he made a way for us to be able to come back to him. And that way is through Jesus Christ. So I'm looking forward to talking about that with you guys in the following days. So until then,